Hello everybody, I am Benjamin Magnus, and today we're going to be learning how to play Hearts of Iron 3. Now with Hearts of Iron 4 a little ways around the corner, I know there's a lot of you out there who would like to get a leg up on that game when it comes out by learning how to play the game that came before it, but Hearts of Iron 3 is, in my opinion, one of the hardest Paradox games to learn how to play if you don't have someone physically there teaching you how to do it. So that's what we're going to be doing today, learning how to play Hearts of Iron 3. Now, I'm going to set these episodes up instead of being sequential where you have to watch one to the next, to the next, to the next, on through the series. Each is going to cover a specific topic, so you can bounce from one to the next depending on which, topic you want to learn about. Today, we're just going to be covering the basic user interface of the in-game menu. So when you start your first game, you're going to be presented with a map of the world like you see here. In this particular instance, I started as Germany in 1936, and that's actually brings me to my first point. We're going to start in the upper left-hand corner of the user interface here with the flag. That just indicates who you're playing as right now. Now, you see a German flag, I'm playing as Germany right now. You'll have to forgive me, the bounds for scrolling is really sensitive. It kind of zooms across, because you're covering the whole planet, it kind of zooms really fast, so I might be flopping around a little bit more than I initially intended, especially when I'm talking about the user interface up here. Next thing we're going to go over is this is your time, your date, and your time compression right here. Right now you can see the game's paused, and unpause it, and there's 5 levels of time compression, 1 through 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 right there. Most of the time, you're probably, if you're in combat, you're probably going to be playing on speed 1 through 3, depending on how in-depth that combat is. If you're waiting for production, or you're just waiting for a specific date to occur, you're waiting for the spring to launch an offensive or something like that, you're probably going to be playing on speed 4 or 5. So we're moving our way across the top here. These are our supplies that we have to work with. This is power, how much energy your country is producing. Right here we have metal, that's, iron, copper, things like that for producing war materials. Next is rare materials. Now, rare materials basically encompasses everything, any rare minerals, any rare materials. Think tungsten. Germany had a hard time during World War II producing enough, mining enough tungsten in the land it controlled to produce, armor-piercing rounds of a specific type. Now, I think they were squeeze bore. I think squeeze bore rounds are what I'm thinking of right now, is basically a round where the end of the barrel was smaller than the back of the barrel, so that the round was physically compressed as it moved through, increasing its velocity because the pressure behind it increased. Think things like that, rare materials. If you're playing as Germany, rare materials are going to be extremely important to you. And this next one right here is crude oil. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's just the crude oil that you're going to need to refine to make gasoline for cars and, aviation fuel and things like that. The next one is really important, IC. IC stands for industrial capacity, and it's basically all of the factories in your country combined to form, production. So you'll have 3 numbers here. The red one, the first one, is IC being wasted because you're not using it for anything. You never want to have that number be above 0. You never want to waste IC. The next one is your base IC, and that's how many factories, basically how many factories you have in your country. How many factories are going to be producing goods, and your available IC is your next number. Available IC is your base IC times any multipliers. And right now you can see from improved technology, I get 10% more IC. From being a silent workhorse, I get 5% extra, and from having a war economy, I get 25% extra. So right now, 201 is my available IC, how much production I can use as Germany right now. Next is stockpiles. So right here we have stockpiles of supplies. Supplies are bullets, beans, and bombs, basically. Everything that you need to make your war function is right here. Supplies, and it'll actually give you a breakdown of how much is being produced, how many is being sent out in convoys, how many is sent out on your road network and rail network, how much is used, and any extras that are returned. Right now you can see I'm using 10 supplies more every day that I'm producing. The next one is fuel. That one's pretty obvious. If fuel is just your, fuel for trucks, for tanks, aviation fuel for planes, you're going to want to keep these numbers in the green. If they reach 0, your units will start suffering from, not having enough supplies. When you don't have enough supplies, you can't attack. And the next thing is money. Depending on which country you're playing as, money is either really important or, not really important. If you're producing a huge if you're playing as like Romania, and you have these huge oil fields, and you're producing massive quantities of fuel, you can sell that off to other countries for for some money, and then you can in turn take that money and maybe buy some production licenses for planes or tanks, or really good infantry weapons or things like that. Next is manpower. Now, your manpower is how many men you have available in terms of thousands, I believe. So right now, that I'm pretty sure each one manpower is 1,000 men. So that means I have 882,000 men available for my military right now. Every time you recruit a regiment or a division, it'll take up a certain number of manpower. Every time you lose men in combat, they need to be replenished, and that will come out of your manpower as well. If you reach 0 manpower, you will not be able to create any more units, you will not receive any reinforcements to your frontline units, and you will start suffering very badly. If you're playing as Germany, like I am right now, and the war drags on for a very long time, manpower will become very, very important to you. If you're playing as Russia, manpower is not that important to you. They have limitless manpower for the most part. Next is diplomatic influence. Diplomatic influence is it's basically a currency you gain every day that you can use to do diplomatic actions. And if we actually click on the diplomacy screen right now, everything in here in this column right here, and depending on which country you click, all these will require a certain number of diplomatic power points, basically. That's what I call them in my head, at least. Diplomatic influence. I call them diplomatic power points just because I used to play not Hearts of Iron. We're playing Hearts of Iron right now. Europa Universalis a lot. So that just is a holdover from there. But, issuing embargo, buying production licenses, influencing other countries to try to come over to your side, that takes diplomatic influence, and we'll go over how to get that kind of thing later. Same thing with espionage. Espionage is basically the number of spies you have recruited that you have in your pool. You could tell your spies to do things through the intelligence screen right here, and we'll go over that in a separate episode as well. This next number right here, the little flag, that's how many officers you have available. So as you can see right now, I have 21,809 officers covering 172 different brigades, ships, and wings. We need 14,480 officers to fully staff them. If this number falls below 100%, you're going to start taking a little penalty to combat because you don't have enough officers to lead those brigades, ships, and wings into combat. And we'll go over how to get more of those guys later as well. Next is dissent. Dissent is just a measurement of how unhappy your people are. That's not going to be, it's really not a big part of the game. It's really easy to control your dissent, and we'll go over that in a separate episode as well. And this is national unity. National unity is basically just how much everybody likes your ruling party. And certain countries, like if you're playing as Germany, national unity is not that important. Everybody kind of supports the Nazi party. If you're playing as some other countries, national unity is going to be very important, especially when it comes time for certain events. Certain events require you to have a certain national unity. So that's going to something that you'll want to watch depending on who you're playing as. And this is just, I don't know why it's right here. I feel like that's a very awkward spot for it. This is just brings up the in-game menu. You can do the same thing by hitting escape on the keyboard. All right, now we're going to go across the bottom of this little panel right here. These tabs open up very important interfaces. And I'm going to actually do a short episode on each one of these tabs, but diplomacy is where you will declare war from. You will also, what is it called? You have events here. So if you hover over here, Well, I'll go over this at a separate episode, but diplomacy is basically where you take care of any interactions between countries. Production is going to get a episode of its own, definitely. Production is super, super important. There's a lot in this tab. I'm going to go over it all in a separate episode. It'll be in the same playlist, so you'll just have to go through and find it. It won't be that hard. But production is where you will produce all of your divisions, all of your air wings, all of your ships, and how you control where your industrial capacity, that number we were talking about before, is going to go in terms of upgrades, reinforcements, production of supplies. This little slider right here controls this number up here, but like I said, we'll go over that all in a separate episode. Technology, this is also going to get its own episode. Technology is very important. These sliders are all very important as well. Officer slider right here, this one controls this number. Diplomacy slider controls this number right here. Espionage slider controls this number right here. And all these different technology tabs is basically the different technology in these different areas. So if we go to armor, you can see this is light tank technology here. You'll need to get specific levels of light tank technology research before you can go on to medium tanks, and it'll actually tell you light tank gun, light tank engine, light tank armor, light tank reliability number 2 to go to medium tank brigades. And then obviously you'll need to research medium tank brigades before you can build medium tanks. And like I said, I'll go over this in more detail in a separate episode. Politics, this is I'll actually go over this one right now. No, there's a little bit in here that's important. I'll give this one its own separate episode as well. Yeah, I think I will. There's enough in here to cover it. Politics basically just shows you how popular all of your diplomatic parties are. Your political parties right there. It has a little bit of a strategic warfare element in it. You can change laws down here, and you can change ministers, which give you different bonuses, and I'll go over that in a separate episode. Intelligence. I always found intelligence to be a very minor part of this game, but this is basically just where it's kind of passive. You just kind of tell your spies where to go and what you want them to do, and they kind of do their own thing. Theaters. The theaters tab is not something I honestly use this much. You can select theaters of the world to let the AI control, and it'll tell you that the AI will tell you exactly what it thinks it needs to control that front appropriately, and you can see it'll list everything it needs right here, and you can automatically tell the game to build what it wants and give it to that theater right there. This next button right here, this is just an overview button. This is every Paradox game has its own overview section, and this is no different. You'll just go through the different tabs, and it shows you all the different information you can ever want in here. And right now, it's all pretty empty just because I haven't been doing anything. I've only played the game for 19 hours right now, which means it's only been unpaused for several seconds. And the last tab right here is strategic warfare. Strategic warfare is kind of, again, you kind of tell your subs and your bombers to do their work, and they kind of go out and do it. So it's mildly passive. There's a little bit of an active element, but this will track exactly what's going on each month, each year, the entire conflict, ships sunk, bombing raids, anything that's happened on the land. For ships, it's U-boat warfare mostly, and for air, it's strategic bombing, things like that. Now next are these little buttons right here. Any pop-ups right here that come up right under this tab are important things for you to look for. So this is telling me that I can affect more efficient laws by clicking on this button. It'll take me where I need to go to do that. So right now it says I can improve my mixed industry through my industrial policy laws. So it'll take me to the right tab, and I can go to industrial policy laws, which is right here, and change my law to something more efficient. This is telling me I have more research possible. If I click on this button, it'll take me to the correct tab, my research tab, and it'll tell me I can research more things right now. And we'll go over research in that separate episode, like I said. And this is telling me I have IC wasted, and it's got a big exclamation point right there because it's telling you you're wasting production that you don't need to waste. Never have wasted IC. You never, ever, ever want to waste IC because, once it's gone, it's gone. You never get it back. Anything offers from other countries, those pop up right down here. So right now we have a trade offer from Finland. Finland is saying they'll pay us for rare materials. As Germany right now, rare materials are rare for me, so I'm going to decline that. And here's one from Italy. They want money for rare materials as well. I'm going to decline that as well because I want to make sure I have enough of those rare materials for myself before I sell off any extras. Now next, over here on the right-hand corner is what is called the overview. And the overview is, again, this is a common theme through all Paradox games. It's basically an open and closable tab where you can customize what information you want to see. So I'm gonna click all these buttons across the top. They're all grayed out, which means I'm not seeing any of that stuff. But as soon as I click on one of these, it'll activate it, and this will show me all land units in the game. And it'll show you a breakdown. The little plus icon here, you hit that, and it'll show you a breakdown of everybody who's maintained inside this theater right here. So these are top level theater commands right here. And then you click on that, it'll open it up. It'll show you everybody contained in that command structure. And you can open that up. It'll show you everybody contained in that structure as well. And we can do the same thing for air units. It'll show you all your air units. I actually don't use land unit one that much. Air units are kind of harder to find sometimes just because you lose track of where you put them. So you can click on one, it'll take you right to it, and it'll show you exactly where it is, and it'll even select it for you. Same with ships. You can click on one of your flotillas, it'll take you to exactly where it is, and it'll select it for you. You can see it's selected. You get this little overview on the left over here. So if I select my undersea boot flotilla, it'll select my submarines I have, and it'll bring me to where they're stationed. Now, if I could have land combat, air combat, and naval combat all selected, and it won't show me anything right now because there's no combat going. But when you have these three selected, these three I usually do have up. Anytime there's active combat, it'll pop up on the overview, and it'll show you how well you're doing. It'll show you like a percentage value of how well that combat is going. This is our bombings. It'll show you a strategic warfare, basically who's getting bombed where. Hostile bombings, that's them attacking you, them bombing you, and allied objectives. If you know what their objectives are and you have this selected, it'll show you on the overview what they're trying to do. Now next, we're going to move into the lower right-hand corner, and this is probably going to be the longest episode. If you make it through this whole thing, I bet all the other episodes are probably going to be between 5 and 15 minutes, while this one's pretty long, just because there's a lot to go over in it. Right down here, you have your mini map, and you see, if you can tell, you got this little this like parabola on it. If you unpause the game, you can watch as the time goes by. Let's put this on speed 3. This will tick across the world. Light is where there's daylight, dark is where it's nighttime, and that will become important because you get like a minus 50% like attack modifier when you're fighting at nighttime. So it can be very important what time of day and night it is when you launch an attack. Now we're going to go over, and honestly, this is pretty universal for all games. You can click on the map and move to wherever you want. It pans so quickly though, I usually just pan around to wherever I want to go. Now I'm going to go over the different map modes here, and I'm going to show you which ones are important and which ones you can kind of ignore. This is the terrain map mode, and I find it completely useless. I never use it. The next one, the simplified terrain map mode, much more effective. When you're planning attacks, you need to know what kind of terrain you're going to be fighting in. Tanks are not very good at fighting in cities, so if you see these purple icons, these are pretty obviously easy to see on the map because they got those little hashes all over them. It looks like a little city. So like that's pretty obvious to see, but like maybe over here, this swampland in the Soviet Union, you're going to want to avoid that like the plague because it's going to be very hard for your units to fight in it. Forests and hills, and especially mountain ranges, very, very difficult to fight in. So when you're planning offensives, you can see if you're playing as Germany and you're attacking the Soviet Union across this border here, you might want to launch a panzer attack straight through these open plains here because they've got wide open country to drive across. But if you try to drive your panzers through these marshes here, this swampland, they're going to take like a 90% movement speed penalty trying to drive through marshland. Or if you look, you're going to be fighting up here, you're going to want infantry to attack through forests, not tanks. Or let's say you're fighting in France as Germany, or you might want to aim your blitzkrieg for this little spot right here between the forests, because that's where you're going to get the most positive benefits to attacking rather than going through the forest, unless that's heavily defended and going through the forest is lightly defended. It's a very important map mode to flip in between, especially when you're planning attacks. Maybe not when you're actually in combat, because when you're actually in combat, you should know where the terrains are, because you should have planned ahead of time. When you're planning attacks, simplified terrain map mode is super important. Now, political map mode. This is the one I spend 95% of the game on just because it's really easy to see everything. On terrain map mode, you can't really see, you got the little red outlines here, but it's hard to see where countries are. Political map mode is super easy. Germany, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, France. It's really easy just to look at the map and quickly see where everybody's borders are and where any occupying forces may be based solely on the color of the country. Weather map mode. Weather map mode, it's more important in the winter than it is in the summer, or if you're playing over as like Japan and you have to worry about monsoons and storms and stuff like that. Attacking during bad weather can be very bad, so if you're about to launch an attack, it might be a good idea to click on your weather map mode and make sure that the weather is clear before you do it. Intel map mode I find particularly useless. Everything on the Intel map mode is showed on pretty much every other map mode as well. Revolt risk. Revolt risk map mode will be important when you start occupying countries. Green area is good, yellow area is okay, red areas are areas where there might be heavy revolts. You might have to worry about militia uprisings coming up from behind you. So if there's red areas, you might need to garrison those areas with military police, or even like Germany has the SS, they have suppression abilities for the area around them, so you might want to put some of those units in those areas. Diplomatic map mode, again, I don't find this one particularly useful. You know who you're going to be at war with. It's World War II, you should know who you're going to be at war with. If you don't, you can click on diplomatic map mode. Anybody in green is ally, anybody in red is an enemy. Region map mode, I never use this. I find it particularly useless. I don't think I've ever once had a use for it. Supply map mode, this can be very important, especially when you're fighting very far from home. All of your supplies have to move from basically your capital, where everything is stored, along roads and rail networks to get to where they need to be. And you can see right here, this area of Germany, Königsberg here, that's not connected to the mainland. So those supplies have to be transferred from ships from one port to the next. So the supplies have to go from Berlin to this port right here, onto a ship and over there. That's very, very important if someone is trying to starve you out by sinking your supply ships. If they sink your supply ships, those guys aren't going to get their supplies and they won't be able to fight effectively. So supply map mode can be very effective in sussing out problems. If guys are in poor supply, you can use this to figure out why. Infrastructure map mode can be mildly important. When you're fighting in mainland Europe, infrastructure is not a big deal. If you're fighting in the Far East, or in even certain areas of the Soviet Union where the infrastructure is very poorly built up, you'll want to avoid areas of low infrastructure. And if you could see, as you hover over areas, it gives you a percentage. Anything below, I think 20%, so 10% or 0%, you actually cannot move units into, and you have to go around them. Areas of very low infrastructure will mean the supplies have trouble moving to your troops. If it's a very low infrastructure, you may need to move troops out of that region and have it more lightly defended, or fewer units in there for an attack than you might initially want, just because, you know, if you stack a lot of units in an area of low infrastructure, they might not be able to get all the supplies they need. VP. VP stands for Victory Points. Victory Points are important cities and towns that you'll need to take to force a surrender. So if I was attacking Poland, say, Warsaw, the capital, is marked with a little red dot. Russia, Moscow, is marked with a little red dot, and it tells you exactly how many points it's worth. So Moscow's worth 4. These other ones are worth 2 apiece. So the higher the point value, the further taking it will get you towards their surrender. So, you know, Moscow is obviously very, very important to Russia, so taking it will go a long way to forcing a surrender. So if you're trying to plan out, you know, where your attacks need to go, turn on Victory Point map mode. It'll show you what the important cities you need to take are. Now, these are the theaters I mentioned before. You can edit theaters all you want. It's very easy. I'll show you it in a future episode, but this just shows you, using various colors, which theater encompasses which areas of your territory. Air map mode. This will be mildly important, especially if you're playing as Germany. It just shows you where your planes are stationed, and this green ring is their total range. So when you're trying to defend against strategic bombers, you know you're going to want to take your interceptor squadrons and kind of spread them out to cover as much area as you possibly can. It'll also show you when there are attacks. It'll show you where bombings were and where any air combat took place. And the same thing with naval map mode. It'll show you on the map with little icons where any naval combat or supply ships being sunk happened. So if you're losing a lot of supply ships, naval map mode's important. If you think you're getting strategically bombed a lot, air map mode is pretty important. Strength map mode, never used it before, never found it terribly important. It just shows you a relative strength based on, highlighted colors of, where troops are. And resources map mode. Resources map mode is, again, good for planning attacks. Any of these yellow areas are things that will get you specific permanent bonuses as long as you hold them. If we go to, I believe, production, strategic resources. So because we have aluminum from Altenburg there, we get an air build speed of 15%, so our planes build 15% quicker. Horses, supply throughput, so supplies will move 10% more efficiently through your supply lines. Very good stuff. So taking strategic resources is very important. And other than that, it will show you, highlighted areas like this, bright green, important. The lighter green areas are less important. And you can really use this to try to, if you're really low on a specific resource, you can use this map mode to plan on where you might need to attack next. I'll very quickly go over these buttons right here. This is the show and hide current battle plans. If you make battle plans, and you can make battle plans, I'll actually show you that in a second, or you discover battle plans, clicking this button will show you them on the map. And this is your battle plan editor. Say we want to add in Fall Blau. Nope, not Fall Blau. Let's do Fall Weiss right there. We'll apply this one, and we'll go to our current plans. This is the attack on Poland, I believe. Do we have it in there? Did we edit it? I don't know if I edited it in correctly. There we go. There it is. So this is the plan for the attack on Poland. Now, this doesn't actually control any units. This just shows you the historical plan on the map. And there we go. And now that will turn it on and off, as you can see. Victory conditions. This is what you need to win the game. As the access, you can see you need Operation Sea Lion, Barbarossa. You need to control all this stuff. Those are your goals for the game. You need to control all that stuff to win the game. Strategic effects. This can also be useful for planning stuff. You get static bonuses. You get these percentage bonuses for completing specific objectives. So, Pact of Steel. Germany is a member of the Axis. Italy is a member of the Axis. Once you complete both of those and Italy joins us, we'll get 5% more supplies being produced, and our research will be 5% more efficient. So a lot of these can be pretty big bonuses. All you need to do is hover over the little question mark, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to have that come into effect. And this is Find Province. This is pretty general from all Paradox games. Just type in the name of a province if you don't know where it is, and it'll take you to it. Alrighty, everybody, that is it for the general user interface overview. Now, things like all these tabs up here, combat, the hierarchy, what all these numbers on these tabs mean, what these tabs are, what the icons mean, all that stuff is going to be covered in little tiny separate episodes. You'll just need to flip over to whichever episode is, apt to what you want to learn, and I'll teach you anything you want to know about that. If there's anything specific you want an episode made on, something you don't understand, maybe a strategy or something like that, or something I didn't cover efficiently enough, just leave me a comment right down below, and I'll do my best to make an episode specifically for that topic. So everybody, if you've enjoyed this, please just drop me a like, leave me any of those comments I just mentioned right down below, and if you're interested in more learning how to play Hearts of Iron 3 from Benjamin Magnus, just subscribe to my channel. I will see everybody next time.